In the early 1400s, a fleet unlike anything the world had ever seen sailed out of China. Hundreds of ships stretched across the horizon. Some were said to be large enough to carry entire villages. Together, they carried nearly 30,000 sailors, soldiers, diplomats, doctors, translators, and craftsmen. Their destination? The unknown. At the center of this extraordinary expedition stood an unlikely leader. He wasn't a prince. He wasn't a famous general. He wasn't even born into wealth. He was a eunuch. His name was Zheng He, and long before European explorers crossed the Atlantic, he commanded one of the greatest maritime expeditions in human history. So, who was Zheng He? How did a palace servant become the admiral of the largest fleet on Earth? And why did China suddenly stop exploring the oceans? This is his remarkable story. Zheng He was born in 1371 in Yunnan province, in southwestern China. His birth name was Mahi. His family was Muslim. His ancestors had traveled across Central Asia and served under the Mongol-led Yuan dynasty. From an early age, Mahi grew up hearing stories of distant lands, stories about deserts, foreign kingdoms, and trade routes that stretched thousands of miles. But his childhood would not last. When he was only a boy, the Ming Dynasty conquered Yunnan. Imperial soldiers captured Mahi. Like many young boys taken into palace service during that period, he was made a eunuch. His future had been decided for him, or so everyone believed. Instead of disappearing into obscurity, Mahi entered the household of Prince Zhu Di. The prince quickly noticed something unusual. The young eunuch was intelligent, calm under pressure, physically strong, and remarkably capable. Rather than assigning him ordinary palace duties, Zhu Di kept him close. The two spent years together. They traveled, planned military campaigns, and gradually built a relationship based on trust. That trust would change both of their lives. In 1399, China was thrown into civil war. Prince Zhu Di challenged his nephew, the Yongle Emperor, for control of the Ming throne. The conflict lasted nearly 4 years. Mahi fought alongside the prince. He proved himself loyal, fearless, and dependable. When Zhu Di finally emerged victorious in 1402, he became the Yongle Emperor, one of the greatest rulers in Chinese history. The emperor never forgot those who had helped him win the throne. Among them, none was rewarded more generously than Mahi. The emperor gave him a new name, Zheng He. It was both an honor and the beginning of a legend. The Yongle Emperor had an ambitious vision. He wanted the world to recognize China's strength, not simply through war, but through diplomacy, trade, and prestige. To accomplish that goal, he ordered the construction of an enormous treasure fleet. Shipbuilders worked day and night. Ports expanded. Supplies poured in from across the empire. The result was astonishing. More than 300 ships, nearly 30,000 crew members, thousands of tons of silk, porcelain, tea, gold, silver, and gifts for foreign rulers. No nation on earth possessed anything comparable, and the emperor chose Zheng He to command it all. In 1405, the fleet departed. Its first voyage carried the Chinese across Southeast Asia, then into the Indian Ocean. They visited modern-day Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India. Everywhere they arrived, the fleet made an unforgettable impression. Local rulers welcomed them with elaborate ceremonies. Diplomatic missions exchanged gifts. Trade flourished. Chinese silk and porcelain were traded for spices, ivory, precious stones, and rare animals. For many kingdoms, meeting Zheng He's fleet was the largest diplomatic event they had ever experienced. Over the next 28 years, Zheng He led 7 great voyages. His ships reached Arabia, Persia, and the east coast of Africa. Chinese records describe visits to ports in present-day Kenya and Somalia. The expeditions crossed thousands of miles of open ocean, without modern engines, without GPS, without accurate world maps. Navigation depended on astronomy, experience, and extraordinary seamanship. Each successful voyage demonstrated the remarkable skill of the fleet's sailors. Perhaps the most famous story came during one of the African expeditions. Among the gifts presented to the Yongle Emperor was an unusual animal. It had an incredibly long neck, spotted skin, and graceful movements unlike anything most Chinese had ever seen. Today we know it as a giraffe, but many people at the Ming court believed it was the mythical Qilin, a legendary creature said to appear during times of peace and wise leadership. The arrival of the giraffe became a powerful symbol. To many, it seemed as though heaven itself approved of the emperor's rule. Of course, not every voyage was peaceful. Pirates threatened shipping routes. One notorious pirate leader challenged Zheng He's fleet. The response was swift. The treasure ships were supported by powerful military vessels. The pirate fleet was defeated, its leader captured and brought back to China. The expeditions demonstrated that diplomacy and military strength often traveled together. Friendship was offered first, but the fleet was fully prepared to defend itself. The voyages transformed China's relationships with dozens of kingdoms. Foreign ambassadors traveled back to Beijing. Trade expanded dramatically. China's influence reached farther than ever before. Yet the voyages were expensive. Maintaining hundreds of ships required enormous resources. Some government officials questioned whether the expeditions were worth the cost. Others believed China's greatest threats came not from the sea, but from the northern frontier. The debate continued for years. In 1424, the Yongle Emperor died. Without his strongest supporter, the future of the treasure fleet became uncertain. Later emperors showed far less enthusiasm for overseas exploration. Confucian officials argued that government money should be spent strengthening agriculture and defending China's borders. Gradually, funding disappeared. Shipbuilding slowed. The great voyages came to an end. After Zheng He's final expedition in the early 1430s, China never again launched a fleet on the same scale. What happened to Zheng He himself remains something of a mystery. Many historians believe he died during or shortly after his final voyage. His burial place has never been confirmed, but his legacy survived. Centuries later, European explorers such as Vasco da Gama and Ferdinand Magellan became famous for opening new sea routes. Yet decades before many of them sailed, Zheng He had already crossed the Indian Ocean with one of the largest fleets ever assembled. His expeditions connected cultures, expanded trade, and demonstrated the extraordinary capabilities of Ming China. Today, historians continue to debate why the voyages ended. Would history have been different if China had continued exploring the oceans? No one knows. But one fact is beyond dispute. A boy captured during war, forced into palace service, rose to command the greatest fleet of his age, not through royal blood, not through inherited power, but through intelligence, loyalty, leadership, and the confidence of an emperor. Zheng He's story reminds us that history is often shaped by the people we least expect. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like the video and subscribe for more stories from Chinese history. We'll see you in the next episode.